Coming up next on the Witness the World podcast. Be the love that you seek.
Our first example of love are our parents, whether they were there, whether they were not, whether they were good, whether they were bad. It doesn't matter. It's actually what we see. It's our first experience as a female with your father figure, your first man you really love when you come into this world, and as a boy with their mother. So when we literally say we have like mommy and daddy issues, it's not coming out of left field. It's a true thing.
The content here is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any content here should not be construed as financial, medical, or any other type of professional advice. Good day, everyone. Welcome to episode 28 of the Witness the World podcast. My name is Ben Choi, and today we'll be heading to Eastern Canada to continue on with our personal growth journey. On today's podcast, we'll be chatting with a relationship coach who's been on a mission to help people discover their best self, find happiness, and connect with their match for the long term. We're pleased to have with us Chantal Landreville. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy you pronounced my name really well.
Excellent. It wouldn't be good for a Canadian to pronounce another Canadian's name wrong. So yeah, that is great. I got it. So excellent. So Chantal, the timing of this podcast episode and having you on couldn't be any better. We're about 10 days away from Valentine's Day. Yeah. So for a relationship coach like yourself, this is probably one of the busiest times of the year. However, for some people out there, this also can be one of the loneliest times of the year. So I thought we could start by having you share a bit about your relationship self-discovery story. As I understand it, you were enjoying a successful career, living your best life, but lacking that one piece, the relationship piece, which was a bit of a struggle for you. At one point, you decided to look inward, seek out all sorts of therapy, meditation, and even ayahuasca. So if you could take us back, what was the moment for you that got this all started for you, Chantal?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I want to make sure we cover the Valentine's Day piece after my story. I can't wait to actually answer that. So a little bit on my background. I was actually in a relationship very young, from 19 to 26. I was a small town girl moving to the big city of Montreal, and I met an older guy. We had a 7-year difference. And he took me on this amazing journey of discovering everything, culture, food, wine. Like I was just like in awe. And a couple years when we settled into my relationship, I kind of stepped into being my person. And I've always had a very strong personality. And that was a problem for my partner at the time. So I quickly came to realize I can't be with someone that doesn't really accept me for who I am and who I'm trying to flourish to be in. So needless to say, I left the relationship, and I will always remember this. I wrote down a list of everything I wanted to do and experience. And that's always been innate in me. I've always been very curious. I have a massive thirst of learning. And I think that's followed me a lot and helped me in my own personal journey to getting to where I am today. So that list, not sadly, in a good way, it took me 10 years to go through, which was by choice. It was great. I did and experienced everything I wanted to. And there's a lot of power in giving yourself permission to experience life and really get to know who you are. And because we learn from the good and our mistakes, right? And then when I finally said, holy shit, this has been 10 years now. It's time for me I want to settle down. I want to find my person. The problem starting going even deeper, where I would always attract emotionally unavailable men. And at this point in my life, I was succeeding in my career. As you said, I was traveling the world. I mean, I really, really had it all, because I was also a person that had a very strong joy of life. So I did feel content, but I also felt lonely rejected, and almost like there was something wrong with me because why am I not deserving of love the way I am desiring it? And it's through a form of specific therapy when I was just about to turn 40. So damn, it took a while. That really made me realize where that pattern and that belief was coming from. And that really alternated my way of starting to date. The problem is sometimes when we keep repeating the same mistakes, they're beliefs and patterns that we've had for years, and those don't change overnight. So I always say, self-awareness, knowing what your problem is half the battle. It literally is, because then when you know what it is and why you're acting or not acting a certain way, then you can actually do something about it. So now that I had, awareness, then it was like, okay, how can I put these new ways of thinking, these new ways of approaching dating to transform how I've been doing it most of my life? And that took another, I would say, almost 6 years. And through those 6 years, I really went deeper into the whole self-development journey. As you said, and as I said earlier, thirst, like almost like a overachiever and an over consumption of self-development. And I told myself at this point, okay, Chantal, you actually need to integrate the work and do the actual work, because it's one thing to know stuff, but it's a whole other thing to integrate the work. And I saw the results because I finally attracted my partner. We've been together now for 5 years. And when I got into my relationship, I realized, wow, it's one thing to make sure that you attract the right partner. That in itself is a difficult job. But the second part is like, how do we make sure we succeed in relationship? And these are skills that we've never been taught. We don't know. They don't teach us this stuff in school. So you can literally be with the right person, but you do not know how to navigate through conflict through your relationship. So that's when I had my aha moment, having no time, traveling the globe for the wine business that I used to be in, to being home 24/7 and really creating this program and writing my book. And it just took over me. I was like, I really, really need to put this out into the world, because we all need a lot of help when it comes to love, dating, and relationships. And not just in our romantic relationships, it's just with other humans.
Got it. Yes, you covered a lot there, Chantal. And one of the key themes there is like learning, and just keep learning so you can improve yourself. And obviously there's a gap in the school system. We don't learn about, relationships of any kind, whether it's, like a professional relationship, how to deal with like your boss or friends, or romantic relationships. So such a huge gap. So I guess we're left to our own devices to kind of seek out the learnings and to do the inner work, which you did yourself. And I know a lot of people that listen here who are kind of on that path, and I'm also on that path. It's a lifelong journey, I feel. So yeah. I guess because in your line of work here, relationship coaching, you probably focus on getting your clients, people that you help out, to do that inner work. So I guess my first question to you is like, how do you get people to to a point where they've done enough inner work, and what type of inner work that they need to do before they're ready enough to put themselves out there in the dating pool? Are there a few things that kind of stand out to you that come to mind?
Yeah, well, first off, you really have to have hit a wall that you're ready to integrate the work and do the work, right? And want to do things differently, because most of us are really human beings in general are afraid of change. We just like our little routine and coziness and doing the same thing over and over again. But the thing is, if you want to see different results, you got to try different things. And that's where understanding what are your patterns, what are your belief system. And I always say this is the hard part about diving deep into the work. Especially if you want to attract and be in a healthy relationship, you need to understand yourself, how do you show up and why you do not show up the way you do. And that's often rooted to childhood. What it just is. It's rooted to childhood. Our first example of love are our parents, whether they were there, whether they were not, whether they were good, whether they were bad. It doesn't matter. It's actually what we see. It's our first experience as a female with your father figure. It's the first man you really love when you come into this world. And as a boy with their mother, it's like, so when we literally say we have like mommy and daddy issues, it's not coming out of left field. It's a true thing. So I would say it's really important for people to go do some serious self-reflection on understanding how is the relationship between my parents? How is my relationship with my mom, with my dad, or my main caregivers, to understand how and why you are the way you are today? Because these are things that have been imposed on you, because as a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, you still don't, you're new, you're coming into this world. You don't know anything, you're learning. So I would say that's a big, big piece that's really important to understand to help you move to the next steps and make sure, okay, this is why I'm acting the way I am. So again, the self-awareness component of things, the more you know yourself, why you act the way you do, why you react the way you do, why you get triggered the way you do, it gets much easier to understand who you're attracting, why you're attracting them, and how to manage in relationship through it as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you're doing the self work, it sounds like you can do it on your own. But I was wondering what your take is on, getting someone to help you, getting that third party person, that therapist, a counselor. I mean, now in the world, like we've shifted in focusing like mental health, really important, and there shouldn't be any stigma behind that, because if we can, work on ourselves, be a better person, then that'll create hopefully better relationships down the line there. So that totally makes sense. So yeah, how important is it also like to get that check-in, maybe, I don't know, once a year? If you're in a good place, maybe once a year you check in with, some therapist, counselor, because I think a lot of us, you think things are fine, but we don't see our blind spots. We can't really identify it. So it's good to have another perspective, see that, and then to, like you said, break through those patterns, identify the patterns, and then we can work together with our therapist, counselor, whoever, to break through, and then obviously have a better dating and relationship kind of situation. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And I love that you said a different perspective, because most people go and get help when they've hit a breaking point of no return, right? It's like couples, I hear it all the time that I work with. It's like they're at a point of no return and then they choose to go get help. Everything I teach is learn this stuff before you go into relationship, or prepare or build your toolbox to know how to manage through even when you're doing good. So you know how to catch yourself, you know what to do, instead of like being in survival mode. And it's like, oh my God, I have to do something. I don't know what to do. And I will say this, as a relationship coach that literally, I eat, breathe, and eat this stuff every day, I still need a check-in all the time. All the time. I fall off the rails. I just need like a different perspective, or I need someone to catch me on my shit and say, Chantal. So I think that we really need to demystify waiting to get the help till shit goes down, versus what about having it and building that support system before. So you build that toolbox, and we often need different things at different times. I mean, I have been working with different kinds of therapies, and it can be, and when I say therapies and therapists, it's like a lot of people make it just about the therapist. I'm talking about coach. I'm talking about food. I'm talking about breath work. I'm talking about meditation. There's so many different things out there. And that's the beauty of social media today. There's definitely a lot more accessibility to free stuff. I was again this morning scrolling, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe all this amazing information is out there for free for people to learn from. So learn and be open to hearing things differently, seeing things differently, receiving them differently. Because if you're not open and you're very set in your ways, you limit yourself from having a tool that could come to you that is really going to work for you, and stay stuck where you are. So yes, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, good to hear. Yeah, thanks for your take, Chantal. So also wanted to ask you, through the therapy process, I thought this one theme is really important to kind of cover. It's like when we're trying to like seek happiness, a lot of people, they today. I mean, some people know that it's inward. You got to find the happiness for yourself, but then there's others that, think that they can get happiness from an external force that's outside there. And I think that's probably not the right way of looking at it, because true happiness, if you're happy inside, that'll lead to a happy relationship later when you're adding somebody else. And part of happiness is, seeking it out, but also finding that purpose in your life for yourself. So like, these are things that are part of the journey for you working on yourself and self-work. And so wonder if you could speak to that, and like, how important are these things to drive you, as opposed to look inward versus the external things. It's probably one of the most common things I'm probably thinking you've seen.
Yeah, because we often try to seek validation for happiness outside, and especially in relationship, especially in romantic relationship. So when we talk about the famous buzzword self-love, which we're talking a lot more about, but I remember for me personally in my journey, one of the things that kept me from attracting a really nice relationship is that I didn't have self-love for myself. I had self-love where it was like more the superficial stuff, right? I'd go to the spa and whatever. But I mean, really taking care of my insides and really honoring. And I'll give an example. A lot of people have problems when they get into new relationships, sticking to their boundaries or communicating their wants and needs. So having enough self-love means you hold enough respect and high regards for who you are as a person to not be afraid to say, no, this is not good for me. I am not okay with this. I cannot do this for you right now. The happiness level is if you are able to curate that within yourself, then all the relationships that come into your life after it's an added bonus. I always give this example. I would be devastated if my relationship ended tomorrow, because I love my man. We have such a beautiful relationship together. We really unite together beautifully. But because I have a lot of love for who I am as a person, I know my identity. I am not defined by another person. So I would actually probably cry, probably be sad and have to grieve for a while, but I would not get lost as a person. And I think that a lot of people get lost in relationship. I mean, if you look at the typical common patterns that I see all the time when I'm working with clients, is that we rush into things. We forget who we are. Like if you were going to the gym, I don't know, 3 times a week, or you're doing an activity, then you start skipping your activities because you want to see this person, this night, one night after the other. And it's like, why? Why are you refraining? You're literally not honoring who you are as a person, because all of a sudden you want to give this person your all. And what that creates is high level of expectations, because it's hard to hold on to that in the long-term committed relationships. And that's why I also give the example of when we start texting, when we haven't even met someone, we're texting good morning and every day. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? This is not something that's sustainable on a long-term basis. And it creates massive disappointments and really high expectations. So cultivating happiness and self-love for me is really honoring yourself enough. And that's, again, I'm going to repeat it many times through this call, is self-awareness, right? If you haven't, yourself enough that you can actually hold yourself accountable to share your needs, your wants and desires, not compromise yourself when you're starting to date someone that you feel a red flag coming up, or you forgive a behavior that you would commonly never do because you want to be liked and you really like this person. It's like having enough self-love is saying, you know what? I'm hearing that voice inside that's telling me that this is wrong and that I am not okay with this. I'm going to express myself and say it, because I have enough self-love, enough happiness with who I am as a person to be able to not be afraid of being rejected, because I actually speak my truth.
That's a great way of putting it. So stand your ground with your self-love. I think that's a theme that I'm going to take away from that. So that's really good, Chantal. So let's say you've done the work on yourself, you got a good level of self-love, you know where your personal boundaries are, you have your purpose and what you're doing, you're going to stick with that, things are going good. So in 2024, what is the best place for most people to start their dating search. I know some people might head over to the iTunes or Google Play Store and download the latest and greatest dating app. That's one place. I think it's still one of the most popular spots. Yeah, wondering what you have seen as trends and if that is indeed from all the work that you've done, that's the most popular place. Maybe it's not the best place, but yeah, wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think that the dating apps are still a great place. It's just we need to behave better and change our relationship with dating apps. And listen, I was also that person. So just so you know, that's how I met my man. We met on a dating app. 1 out of 4 people today still meet on a dating app. So there's something good about it. Definitely. You just have to get smarter on how you filter your dates. And we can talk about that if you want and we have time. But I would say a few trends that I've been seeing this year in the last, I would say 2 years, especially if you're a little bit older, my age group, 40s and up, it's revisiting people that you dated that were your kind of high school sweethearts that you really had a connection with. And, life happens, you're young or whatever, you go separate ways and they've reconnected. So I've seen a lot of that and it's really good because I always say, you can meet the right person at any given time, but it's not your time because you both still have things to learn, grow, go through. So that's been one thing. The third thing I would say is pay attention to what's happening around you. We meet people all the time, all day long, but now today we're so like this. We're not paying attention to what's happening, right? Hold your head up high, smile. It could be at a coffee shop. It could be while you're taking your morning commute. You keep seeing the same person. And here's what I want to say. It's not about meeting that person that could be your person. It's about meeting a person that might know a person that wants to introduce you to. Expand the circle and the circumstances. I hear so many times it's so hard, I don't meet anyone, but how I always say negative attracts negative. Are you really paying attention to what's happening around you and maybe creating an opportunity for you instead of making it, oh, could this be the person? Could this be the person? Just what's a smile? Hi. Hey, what kind of coffee are you ordering today? I don't know what I want. Farmers markets are also a really great place to meet people. I always say anything that holds your personal interest, look at what's happening in there. If you're a gym rat, if you're, a hike rat or somebody that's really into sports, pay attention to who's around you playing that sport, for example, and start talking to people that are there. Because like I said, it might not be them, but it might be someone that you develop a friendship with that has someone in their circle. So we just need to expand, I think, how we want to meet. And it's sad because I know since COVID, I'm seeing it. It's definitely much harder to reintegrate socially. A lot of people are much more, secluded. We really need to push ourselves outside that comfort zone because the only way to experience deep, meaningful human connection is investing time. It really is. It's the only way it's going to happen. And you have to say, I want to create this. I want to make this. Because if we keep saying, no, 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 it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, you're not opening the door to change, basically.
I see. Yeah, that's some good points there, Chantal. So kind of keep yourself open to everything, wherever, whenever, whatever your interests are, and not with the intention like I'm going to find true love, but just putting it out there. So if your tension's out there, maybe the universe will kind of repay you in somehow, some way, shape, or form down the line. So yeah, that's good to know. So I wanted to kind of circle back to your relationship. So you used a dating app. I think it was Hinge, if I recall correctly,
Yes,
that
yes.
you found success on there. So I was wondering if you kind of share with us from the download phase to the deletion phase, how was your experience with the dating app? How long did it take? And, what were some of the, pros and cons using it and some of the struggles that you had? Curious to hear what your experience was like.
Well, this is good because I was lucky. I came from the world. I got to experience old school ways of meeting, bars, and through people to the introduction of obviously technology, dating apps. So I had my ups and downs and frustrations with dating apps. I can't even tell you how many times I downloaded all the latest, as you were saying, dating apps and got all excited and develop all this serotonin. There's hope to like, meh, 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 I hate this. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I will remember this always. I was actually at my naturopath's office, and she's known me for a long time through my journey and frustrations when I was looking for love. And she's told me, she's like, did you hear of this new app called Hinge? And I was like, oh, you know what? I can't. I refuse, especially at the age that I'm at, to get on an app again. She's like, well, Chantal, I have to say, the pool of men is like super interesting. I've had some great dates. And she starts telling me a little bit about her experience. And I was like, wow, I'm special and picky, but you're very picky and special because she's an amazing healer, but very out of this world. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I said, okay, let's try. And what she did suggest to me is like, look into people's profile that are not the common profiles that you would be attracted to. And this is super important. We think we have a type. So we limit ourselves to what we think is what we want. And there is a big difference. And I talk about this in my book, The Triangle. Big difference between what you think you want, what you attract, and what's actually right for you. So I was attracted to type A personalities, bad boys, like a lot like who I was as a person, and I would attract unavailable emotional people because I'm not going to get into that point right now, but what was really right for me was someone that was completely different from my personality. I needed someone that was grounded, someone that was calm, someone that was very secure in who they are and didn't need to make a lot of noise. And that's exactly what I attracted. Jeff and I are complete opposites, but we complete each other really well, having those strengths and weaknesses amongst each other in our dynamic. We get to have all the flavors of the world. So I would say as soon as I did that, I only had 2 dates, and one of them was with my partner. So the adventure on Hinge was very short-lived for me. It was our time. And as I said earlier, timing was everything because probably 6 months after we had started dating and we obviously decided that this was a serious thing and we were both moving to a common goal of building something together, we realized through exchanging stories that we had a few friends in common and we had been at the same events together. And I realized that I said, oh my God, he told me, he's like, you would have never given me the time of day. Never. And I was like, wow, you're so right. That's why I say timing is everything. And again, the key word, be open to trying something different and dating outside your comfort zone, because often what we think we want is not what's right for us.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great story there. You didn't have to be on there long, which I guess is a great plus. Now, there are people there that have been in there much longer than you. And I wonder, just through your brief experience with Hinge and just knowing of these dating apps and, talking to other people that you've helped coach through, like it's a different dynamic, if you're male, female, like you're getting different volume of responses. So from what I understand through my research is like that females are going to get a ton more replies. So you have to sift through all the different responses. You're going to go figure out a process to do that, efficiently. Whereas guys, not getting as much volume and you got to find a different way of standing out. So I wondered if you could maybe share a few tips on, the two different vantage points there and what would help make each feel successful going through that.
100%, 100%. So when you are online dating, you have to be a little bit more intentional about it. And that's what I'm seeing, or I'm teaching people to do, is that if we are sick of certain behaviors that we are seeing, we need to actually step up and say so and not accept them. And I find that there's a lot of acceptance happening out there on those dating apps. So first off, create yourself a profile, not just a few pictures and a hey, right? Like you really need to take the time to create a profile that represents who you are, that says what you want, that shares your needs, and be honest about what you're looking for. If you're not looking for hookups, saying you do not contact me if I am not looking for hookups, and be okay with that. Be truthful about your pictures and invest into getting some great pictures. And that's like a massive difference between guys and girls. Guys don't know how to do pictures. They'll often do that famous selfie from the car or from the bathroom with the toilet seat up in the back. My partner had professional pictures taken. And that's what stopped me. I was like, wow, this guy is actually really egotistical or actually gives a shit. Well, you know what? He actually gave a shit. And I appreciated that because it says a lot about a person. You need to put pictures that really reflect who you are and your different personalities. Like if you like sports, show that you're a sports person, right? If you're into dancing, maybe show pictures that you're dancing, whatever that may be. Food, music, whatever. But put pictures of not 10 years ago. Put pictures of you in the last 4 to 5 months max, because a lot of people end up putting pictures that are not truthful, that are not realistic, and that creates room for deception. I mean, there's nothing worse. That would happen to me all the time. I remember back in my days when I was like, why did you put a picture of you when you were in high school? Like, you've changed, he was almost bald versus having a full set of hair. I was like, this makes absolutely no sense. So be truthful about who you are. And again, if you're looking for something serious, you want to be accepted for who you are. So show your true colors. So I always say, at least 3 pictures. 1, full body. Show your full body. 2, a close-up of you. We want to see your face, your eyes. Screw the sunglasses. That can be your 3rd or 4th picture. And then a 3rd picture of you in an environment that you enjoy doing, whether that's a sports, a hobby, whatever. But show people who you are in different facets. And I tell women this all the time. There's no problem with you showing a sexy picture. But you also don't need to reveal who you are 100% on your pictures, right? That's why I'm always very skeptical of women that put, like, I call them the hoochie mama pictures, where they're revealing too much. What do you want to attract? And this is something that you can actually reveal later. Why are you showing all of yourself right away as a woman? Just to be careful on how they select their pictures. That's why I'm always skeptical with these bikini pictures and stuff. But I think it's important for people to see the body type, right? So there's a difference between the two. So great pictures, recent pictures, invest into getting pictures taken. Ask one of your friends, to help you, and then create a profile that's intentional. So those are 2 things. Number 3, read through other people's profile. If you are taking the time to make a really nice profile and be intentional about it, you need to give that back to other people that are doing it as well. And that's why I say being intentional. And as in any given relationship, it's reciprocity. It has to be exchange, right? If you want to be treated a certain way in a relationship, you have to give it back as well. So take the time to read people's profile and see who are they. And then I would say this is the biggest thing. Dating apps have started integrating phone calls. Have been there for a while, but now video calls. So be really careful how you select who you're going to go on an official date with in person. So you need to filter. So that's why I say read profiles properly. Then you can text. Keep the text short. No, don't go on for a week or 2 exchanging texts and whatever. It's like, let's set a phone call, and ideally a video phone call. And this is where you can avoid dating burnout. And that's what people get frustrated. I wasted my time. And we tend to create all these, especially women, these scenarios in our head, especially if there's a little flirting going on. You're like, oh my God, could this be my person? I think I found my person. Listen, I was the queen of creating stories in my head of like people I hadn't even met yet. So I'm like, wow. So be more selective of who you're actually going to give your time before you actually go out on a date and meet them. And that happens through a phone call or a video call, because we can pick up a lot through a person just by doing this. I can pick up a lot on your energy and have some intentional questions that you can ask that can give a lot of information between the lines. And one of my favorite things is like, what kind of books do you read? Because that can definitely give a lot of information about someone, how far they are, or even if they are in their self-development journey, their personal hobbies and stuff like that. So get intentional about the questions that you ask as well.
Those are some really good tips there, Chantal. Yeah, I think you unpacked that quite well. Now, there's this one piece there that I'm kind of curious about. So on I think expectations. This is one thing that I think everyone is challenged with at one point or another. So been doing some reading, and it seems that 80% of singles, whether it's online dating or just you're just out there regular settings, 80% of the singles they're always trying to aim to get connected with the top 20%, or the so-called top 20% of the singles there, and that by sheer math leaves a big pool of eligible singles unmatched. So how do we balance, finding the person that, like we don't want to like settle, but at the same time, we got to like temper our expectations. How do you balance the two things there? And is there a good way of going about it? What have you seen? Do you have any insights on that perhaps?
Well, few. And first off, that's why it's important to think outside the box and date outside of what you usually think you are attracted to. That's where you can score, because, I hear it all the time. Women are like complaining there's no good guys out there. And I'm sure guys say the same thing. Well, you know what? There are actually. It's just that's not what you're looking for. So you have to change who you think you're attracted to. And that's one of the things I speak in the book, is getting clear on the vision of not only what you want in a partner, but really getting clear on what you need in a relationship, because there's a massive difference between wants and needs. Wants are typically very self-absorbed, me, and like superficial. I want her to be skinny and sexy. I want him to cook. I want her to be financially well off. I want. Where needs are like almost like I always say it's almost like air and water. You can't live without these things. So it correlates more to your value system. Because think about it, we're always, and I do this exercise with clients all the time. It's like, do you know what you want? Oh, yeah. I start, asking the question. It's always about the partner. There's no thought about what do I want in a relationship and how am I going to grow and evolve with this person? It's a very different conversation. And that's why the clearer you get onto these things, again, you go into the dating pool much more selective, but not in a bad way, in a very selective and smart way, because you don't forget yourself. You don't get caught up in the romance or the pushy talk or just the passion and the lust that can sometimes happen, where we think there's actually a connection, but it's, it could just be chemistry. And there's a big difference between connection, chemistry, and you have to make sure that your eyes stay focused on the long-term goal that you're looking for. So I would say, do yourself that exercise even before you date. Sit down, write down, what do I want and need from a partner? What do I want and need in a relationship? And questions like, how do I want to be treated long term? If I'm going to have a financial issue that I have to deal with, how do I want my partner to show up for me? If I'm going to have a serious death in the family, how do I want them to take care of me? Because what that does too is opens a lot of reflection on if you're ready to receive as well, because a lot of people are looking for love and they're not ready to receive it. We have gated hearts. We're like very protective, our own energy. We're afraid to be vulnerable, right? So these are really great self-reflection exercise. And the more you do of these, And I know it's annoying and there's nothing sexy or romantic about it, but let me tell you, your dating journey will completely transform and you will get different results. You will attract higher quality matches as well because you're honoring your true value system. And I was actually listening to a podcast today earlier, and I didn't get to finish the conversation, but I thought it was a great exercise. He does the science of relationships. And one of the things that he was doing as a matchmaker, he was asking people, what are your values? Because we think we know what we want. And he would say, share with me your values and what you're looking for. So let's say the person was like, well, I'm religious, I'm Christian, I like to go to the church on weekends, I love to cook and eat well, I need to go for walks, 3 times a day, whatever. A week later, he would have that same conversation with the person and say, tell me about your week. What have you done? And oh my God, I went on a fender bender. I ate like crap. I didn't go to church. And you just went against your whole value system that you thought you actually said that you were and wanted, but you're not even owning your own truth. So that was a real eye opener for me because I realized again how important it is to reflect on how we want to grow and evolve in a relationship, because we often think things are important and they really aren't. And I remember I did this exercise, and I'll give just a cute story. One of the things that was really important for me was somebody that danced, because I'm a dancer and I had this like fantasy in my head that we would go, ballroom and salsa dancing together. And so I meet my partner. First question I ask is like, do you know how to dance? And he's like, yeah, no, I have 2 left feet. And I'm just like, oh my God, seriously? And I'm like, well, do you have rhythm? He's like, what do you mean? I was desperate. Okay. And I said, well, do you have a little bit of a shoulder roll? Like, can you at least just stand up and move, bop your head? And he's like, no, this is my dance move, So I was like, oh my God. So this was a want on my list. It was almost like a deal breaker for me, which I was like, I can't be with someone that doesn't dance. But because I had done the work of how I wanted to grow and evolve in my relationship, I knew that's not what it's going to take for me to succeed in a long-term relationship. It was more respect of my need to maybe want to go dancing and him being okay with it. His support of him saying, you know what, go out dancing. Or, we're at a wedding and I'm like, can we do one dance? And he's like, give me a few shots of tequila and I'll give you one dance. So, these are things that, so he accepts me for who I am and supports me for who I am. These are things that really matter in relationship. And I think that, to circle back to your initial question, when we talk about expectations, we're often very self-absorbed on our own wants and needs of like me, but a relationship is not about you. It's about the actual relationship and 2 people coming together and having the willingness to take care of each other's wants, needs, and desires. And I think people forget that a lot. I see it. It's like a relationship is a threesome. It's you, your partner, and the relationship. The relationship has an entity of its own. And as you evolve in relationship, you always have to say, how is this behavior? How is this thing that I'm going to do or say? How is my reaction going to service the relationship? That's the question I always ask myself in like 0.3 seconds. It's just if we're having an argument or I'm not getting what I want the way I want and I'm about to go in attack mode or say something bad, I always ask myself, is this going to service my relationship? My behavior isn't. My reaction isn't. So it demystifies the bomb and you step back. And I mean, that's a game changer on how you can manage or you can succeed in your relationship and work through conflict or whatever you're going through together.
Those are some great insights, Chantal. So I kind of circled back to the point of, where does the, dating search start? Maybe it doesn't start on an app. Maybe it starts with your journal to ask, what your needs are as opposed to your wants. And then if you can mind map that out properly, spend the time on it, then maybe it's time to start downloading the app. So thanks for sharing that, Chantal. So I thought we'd probably pivot over to a couple of hot takes I wanted to get from you. So on these popular topics, dating wise, has been, I guess, been asked by many people over the years. And age when it comes to dating, I know things are different when you go through your 20s, 30s, and 40 plus. And there's this thing called the rule of seven. And for those
Yeah.
people that don't know about it, so it's like, let's say you're 40 years old, then you divide that by 2, 20, and then you add 7. So 27 for a 40-year-old is the youngest that maybe you would be dating. And obviously, if you date closer to your age, then maybe there's a higher percentage of your relationships succeeding for the long term. Just wondering, Chantal, from what you've seen, is that still a thing? Is there science behind that? And have you seen the success rates be okay with that kind of age range in mind?
Well, it's a long question to unpack because of course there's always exceptions to the rules like in anything. And especially today, what we've started seeing more and more is men have always been dating younger women. It's been something that's been there for the longest time. We're just starting now to see women date younger men. So it's been interesting to see how these conversations keep coming up, considering how it's actually been around for a long time, but not for women. So I would say the age gap difference, depending on where you are in your life and what you want, is definitely important. So let's say if you are, a 50-year-old man, you already have kids, and you're dating a 26-year-old, and she wants to eventually have kids, which might happen because when you're 26, you don't really know who you are, and you can have, there's that 10-year thing that can happen, and so all of a sudden you're like, I want to have a family, and the guy's like, well, I'm 60 at that point, 60 something. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I just don't want to do it. So I think it's important to have really honest conversations around those things, depending on that age gap difference. Jeff and I have 12 years. So, but I think it's a very healthy because of where we are in our lives, other than the actual age thing that could happen where at one point, he is 12 years older than me. He could, I don't just saying anything. He could be not as mobile as I would be. I have to be ready to deal with that. But at the same time, I mean, who knows? It could happen to me before it happens to him, right? So what I would invite people to say is question yourself on what you need, be transparent about the potentials of what could happen or not happen, and what's the worst case scenario. Because I think a lot of people, when they're dating younger, or older, as a younger person, they either convince themselves of certain things. No, I won't want to have kids. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And you're allowed to change your mind, by the way. It's something but that's why do some introspection, think and have these open conversations about what if, and maybe this or maybe not. And then you can make the decision. Again, for me, it's open communication, being really transparent. Don't try to say things that, you think you don't want, and then eventually it'll play against you because that's setting yourself up for failure. But I think that dating a younger person has a lot of great things, including vivacity and keeping you on your toes as an older person, and teaching each other some things. There's the beauty of aging is the wisdom and experience that comes with life that you can teach. And then, dating a younger person can keep you, as I said, on your toes and make you experience things and just keep that vivacious energy in you. But have open conversations, be honest and transparent, and, let's face the facts, especially if your age gap is more than 30 years, 20 years, there's a big difference.
Thanks for sharing, Chantal. So one other kind of hot take I want to get from you is, we're talking about Valentine's Day at the beginning of this podcast, and wondering, for 2024, as we're getting closer to Valentine's Day, and just in general here, what are some good date ideas for today moving forward? Obviously, these times it's, we're feeling the pinch in our wallets, these days with, inflation, all this rising costs, that sort of thing. So is it more so maybe we got to be smarter about how we spend our time? Maybe it's more active stuff, go on for hikes, walks, that sort of things. Just wondering, what are some of the things that, people are kind of shifting to in date ideas that are kind of working for people?
I think people forget that small things can make a big difference. We're often thriving for, big, and like that's why, it's hard, it makes it harder to manage expectations. But one of the things that I've seen and I practice in my own relationship is things like thoughtfulness and kindness. And those are often just little things to make another person, and I'll say this, it's like, what if I stop myself? What would really make my partner happy? What do I know that I could do for them that I never do for them? Okay. So that could be something like breakfast in bed, and you take managing the kids before, they get up because the mother's always doing it. It could be, drawing them a hot bath and, preparing a super hot, sexy room for them so they can have some self-care because they never have the time to do it. It could be, there's small little gestures. And a couple things that I love, honestly, especially if you're limited on your wallet, is get creative inside. So one of the things is creating a picnic where you'll move the furniture, you'll put a blanket inside. For us on the East Coast, it's like winter, it's disgusting outside, but like put candles and do a picnic and, create an ambiance that takes you out of the common. There's so much more fun that you can do, and no phones. Okay. Especially if you've been in a relationship for a while, this is where I see it's like that lack of connection time and being present with one another. There's a big difference between, hey, honey, how was your day? And you're like walking around doing this, doing that, versus holding your hand and saying, Ben, how was your week? I want you to tell me, how was your week? Did anything happen that you want to share or whatever? It's nothing, but it's everything because you feel important. And that creates intimacy and that creates connection. So it reignites connection, and it's super simple. You could buy like a deck of cards. We do that once in a while. I have this deck of cards where it's ask your partner a question. And especially if you're starting to date someone, this is great. Let's ask each other questions because we think we know our partners, but sometimes we'll find out things that we're like, really? You think this way, or you did that, or this happened to you? So that's a really great way to do something fun. And I would also say for people that are single out there on Valentine's Day, because we kind of like, that are feeling lonely. So here's my other take on it that I want to invite people to think differently. I couldn't wait to be in a relationship to finally celebrate the day of love where I felt so much shame being by myself, loneliness. Oh my God, I'm still single. Just that reminder of, over and over again. And I have never not celebrated Valentine's Day since I've been in my relationship as much. Because for me, at one point, it was just like, I don't need a day to define how I want to show up in my relationship. I don't need a day to do something special for us. So I don't save myself for that day. I actually save myself to show love because it's the day of love to everything else that matters to me. And as corny as it's going to sound, like Mother Nature, I'll go connect with her and have a nice long walk. Food, with myself, I'll actually, that's what I did last year. I sent Valentine's Day, like we used to do in high schools. We would do Valentine's Day stickers, and I sent them to some friends. And that's like a super small gesture, thoughtful kindness that just puts a smile on people's face. So I just invite people, whether you're single or not, but especially if you're single, think about how all the other ways that you get to experience love other than in a romantic relationship, and feed that. Because when you do things like that, that makes you feel good. It gives you the inner us, making other people happy. It just creates serotonin in your body. And it's a proven fact that when we do purposeful things and things for others that make other people happy, it makes us happier. So I would say to invite yourself to do and think about that differently instead of, listening to this commercialized, overdone, like romanticized, Disneyfied holiday that's like, it's almost like Christmas holidays, right? They're trying to sell you shit. So it's like, let's think about it from a different perspective and explore something different with it.
Those are some great ideas, Chantal. Sometimes simple is best, or less is more, I guess you could also say. So, yeah, no, that's some good ideas. So, we learned a lot of great stuff here with you today. So, as we're kind of winding down this podcast, I always ask my guests a two-parter question to close. So, here goes. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most looking forward to in the future?
What am I most grateful for? Oh my God, so much. I'm grateful for the journey that I've been through and how I have chosen to learn from all the experiences that happened to me, bad or good, and grow and evolve into who I've become. The wisdom is beautiful, and allowing myself to be in a state of self-love like I've experienced. It's been a really, really beautiful thing. And that gets me through every single day, whether it's a bad day or a good day, because it happens to us, right? But that I'm very, very grateful for that. Because I have enough self-love, I've also chosen to be surrounded with amazing people around me because I choose them. I choose the quality of people I want to be surrounded with. So, and it's pretty good. And the thing I'm most looking forward to is, well, the launch of my book, Raise Your Love Signal, a guide to attracting and keeping the love of your life. That's going to be available officially on February 14th. And taking a series of events that I do on the road that are called Let's Wine About Love, because you're going to love this, Ben, because I used to be in the wine business for 20 years. And when I finally left the wine business to focus on my practice full time, I was like, how can I leverage these two amazing passions that I have? So I created Let's Wine About Love, which is the wine is the excuse, but I do seminars teaching people in a fun ambiance, a little bit about how to navigate through love, dating, and relationships so I can create people that can attract a mingling component of it, where people that are on the journey of wanting to do the work and want that higher quality people around them or partners. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great. Yeah, great to hear, Chantal. So if people wanted to know more about you, where can they find you?
All right. So my website, www.raiseyourlovesignal.com. I can be found there, and you have all of my social media. My social media that I'm most active on right now is Instagram. So that's my name, Chantal.Landreville. You can find me a little bit on TikTok. I just started a YouTube. I'm planning, Ben, on kicking off my podcast this summer. So stay tuned for that. But yes, between my website and Instagram, that's the best place to reach me.
Terrific. Thanks, Chantal. We'll be sure to add those details to our show notes.
Awesome.
So that's a wrap for episode 28. If you like this podcast, please give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button below. If you didn't like this podcast, give it a thumbs down, but please do tell us why with a comment below. If you have any other comments, feedback, or suggestions, you know what to do. Thanks for joining us, and namaste, everyone.